apologize. There was some technical difficulties with the microphone, but it was user error. So it's fixed now. We should have no problems. Welcome to our Growth and Planning Committee meeting. I truly appreciate you making it out here, especially with how bad the weather has been. Although I'm super grateful for all of this rain. I don't know about you, but this morning I put out all of my plants so it could soak up all of this good natural water. And so I'm really excited to see a little rain, and hopefully our plants will be a little greener and we'll have more flowers. So welcome again, and thank you for taking time out of your evening to join us where we are doing work for the district in order to plan for our future. This is our opportunity as a larger community to provide feedback, give input, and make suggestions in order for us to really start building a solid master plan in being able to grow our district and make our programs and facilities much more equitable and much greater. So I welcome you. Last time we had our growth and planning meeting, we had it in Judson Middle School, and we had it in their gym so that we could kind of experience some of the needs that we need in our district. This time around, of course, you are sitting here at the Wagner High School, so before I go any further, I would like to thank Ms. Priscilla Alfano, the principal at Wagner High School, for letting us host our meeting here, and some of her administrative team is sprinkled around, and so we thank you very much for being a gracious host. We were going to start our meeting out at the track this evening, but the rain has ruined our plans, but that is okay. We have an alternative, and we have a little virtual tour that we were going to show you a little bit further on in the presentation. So just a little overview of our agenda. We're going to go over some of our meeting 2 activities, results, and the things that we've talked about. We also have a guest speaker, Mr. Brent Alexander. He's going to be speaking to us about our growth projections, and so giving us some information about our demographics. We're going to do our virtual tour of the track, and then we'll wrap up, talk about next steps, and then you all will be on your way home to enjoy your evening warm in your living rooms. So this is just another overview of our timeline of our meetings and how we're going to be engaging different groups. This is not a new slide, but it is something that we want to keep reminding you of. It's not a new slide, but I did add a couple of locations that were not there before, so you'll notice our last 4 meetings are no longer to be determined. They are set. We will have our August meeting at the ERC, one of our district office facilities. We will have our September meeting at Elof STEAM Academy. We will have our October meeting at Judson High School. And then we will have our December meeting in our JTEC building, which is located on Packer. So, Mr. Mendoza, Mr. Wilson, or Ms. McHugh, thank you for letting me host at your facility. They just got out right now. Thank you. So as we are moving forward, it's always nice to know and be ready for the upcoming meeting. So we're pretty on track on the topics that we're going to talk about and the topics we need to get input and information on. We've developed our vision, our purpose statements as our big group. We talked a little bit about capacity and program needs in our last meeting. We have done questionnaires with our department heads, so we have a little bit of an understanding about some different program needs that we need to address. We have completed a principal survey that was a very comprehensive survey of all of our campus principals to talk about the facility needs on their campuses and how those facilities may impact academics on our campus. And so we're still looking through that data, sifting through that data, and synthesizing that data so that we can come back with some results to share with you that you can read, and we will be able to prioritize and understand it in an easy way. We are in process of doing some student workshop things, of course. A big part of, well, the reason why we're students, right? And so in order for us to really move forward to make plans to make equitable outcomes for our students, we need to have that voice. We need to have it. And we've started a little bit. Dr. Ball has a student advisory council that she meets with every month. And so we have been planting little seeds, asking for a little bit of input on what their experiences are like. But we will also launch a student survey so that we can get that perspective. And once we get all of this data together, we'll be able to truly see a picture that's representative of our real community. Parents, students, community members, staff, so everyone involved. We will go over some specific elementary and middle school scopes as well as high school, and then we will end our meetings, not end, but we'll have our last meetings about prioritization and what to do in next steps. Just as a reminder, these are our purpose statements. These are our purpose statements that we came up with as a collective. In our very first meeting, we had a lot of thought starters around the room that talked a lot about what is it that's important to us as a community, what is important to us as a district, where do we see our future for our students and the educational opportunities that we want to provide. And so we came up with some ideals, and we'll go back to those ideals every meeting. And when we start to get to the point where we're prioritizing needs, we're going to go back to these foundations and make sure that whatever we prioritize and whatever decision we make is grounded in these statements so that we can ensure that we're making the best decisions for the future of our district and our students. In our second meeting, we had Ms. Helen Keaton, our Executive Director of Facilities Planning, go over our district capacities. We talked a little bit about how the average age of our facilities is about 28 years, and we've got about 48% of our campuses at capacity. This information was preliminary. Now in the last meeting, she talked about that we didn't include portables in this data, and so we made a few tweaks to that information. If you have any questions, Mr. Alexander would be able to briefly go over that in his presentation as well. We also did an input activity, kind of a feedback activity. We looked at our department head questionnaire, and we looked to see what are the things that were important to them, what were the needs that they had for their specific programs, whether they were academic programs or they were departments. And so something that kept rising to the top were opportunities for career, college, and military readiness. So the activity that we had our participants do in our last meeting is to go around the room and do like a hot dog activity. What are the top 3 career, college, and military programs do you feel your students would want in the community? Because we can think about innovation and we can think about adding more and more programs, but that we can't do just for the sake of doing it. We have to do them because it's truly a need in our community. So that's why we did this activity. So there are lots of different areas and ways that we can provide options for our students in these categories, but what rises to the top? And so this is the activity that we did where we had the people put their top 3, and the ones in red, 17% STEM, 12% being information technology, health science, and we've got a couple 9%, architecture and construction, law and public service, arts, audio, visual. If you were in our last meeting, you received a handout that looked like this that had some specific examples of programs that fell under each of those categories. And so we'll take that information and we'll use it as we get further along in the process, looking at the needs and the different things and programs that we are seeing is a need for our community. And so when we start making decisions and priorities for facility adjustments and those sort of things, we have a little bit of data of what our community is really wanting to see in our schools versus saying, oh, we should get this type of a facility, but then it doesn't have anything to do with a need that is being brought up in these meetings. So, that's just your meeting 2 recap. Does anyone have any questions so far? Fantastic. So I'm going to introduce Brent Alexander. He is going to share a little bit of information about our demographics, and I'm going to set him up just so.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Good evening, everyone. My name is Brent Alexander. I'm with School District Strategies. Very thankful to be the new photographer for the district, and I want to share with you the report that we've been working on over the winter months and into the spring. What you'll see tonight is a preliminary look at the history of enrollment in the district, as well as the residential market and how that's projected to impact district capacity going forward. All right, so to begin tonight, let's look back. What you should see here are the results of the 2020 census. Most of you may have not seen this because these numbers have been delayed for over a year. What has been released is shown here on the screen. We have overall population totals, as well as the total for total households, as well as some age distribution data. So as you can see, as of July of 2020, when the census was taken, the district had a little more than 147,000 total residents. The total number of households in 2020 was just under 55,000. So you can see that both population up about 29% and about 39% of the total number of households. So that's a trend that we've seen in a lot of urban areas, mid-urban areas that have areas that are older, and where we've seen more households with fewer children. So these numbers do reflect that in the overall totals, but you can see for the population under 18, the district is estimated to have seen about a 16% increase. We'll talk about that more here going forward. The next section that I'd like to cover, let's look at the history of the district's enrollment. What you see here are the annual snapshot numbers. The snapshot date is typically the last day of October. So at the end of October, back in the fall, the district had climbed to a record high of 24,531 students. You can see that the number had been pretty consistent from 2011 to 2018, but has grown a little quicker these last 3 years. The numeric change, annual change numbers are in the upper right chart, and your percentage growth numbers are on the bottom right. You can see that the district has grown 7 out of the last 10 years. The faster growth over these last 3 years really reflects a change in the district's pre-K policy. I'm about to show you that here in a minute. But you can see how the district grew by over 800 students from 18 to 19, and then fell back from 19 to 20. The impact of COVID, the pandemic, many of the districts across the state lost enrollment. You all actually stayed on the positive side. Most districts in the greater San Antonio area lost 2 to 4% of their enrollment from that was there in 2019. As many of those students either moved away or went into some type of homeschool situation. The good news is that you have a good bounce back in this school year. Most districts we've seen the numbers were down in October. They did see a good bounce back from over the winter months. So same thing has occurred here in Judson, where even from these snapshot numbers, the growth is up about 400 students from October. But when you take a closer look at the enrollment numbers, you can see These are the numbers for each attendance level in 2-year increments. If you look at the left-hand side of the chart, you can see the impact that the district's open enrollment policy for pre-K going to a full-day pre-K, the impact that it's had. The district has seen its elementary enrollment decline over the last few years. At the same time, middle school's been relatively flat, and then high school declined to record levels. This slide here gives you a little better picture because it shows all the individual totals per grade. I have circled in red the record sizes for each grade. It's interesting when you look at this, you can see that the last wave of growth that really hit back in the 2013, 2014 timeframe, how those students have aged up through the district and are now the main reason for record enrollment in the high school grades. Now, you can see in the far left-hand side that just since 2018, the total number of pre-K students has gone from just under 700 to now almost 300. So behind that wave of growth, you see the blue arrow showing the downward trend in enrollment for the elementary grades. There's several reasons behind that. Let's kind of take a look at it. So if you take away pre-K and only focus on the K through 12 numbers, here's a truer look at what the district has seen in terms of growth. More of a flat pattern over the last 5 years, but up slightly. So pre-K obviously is important, but when we talk about the future growth that's coming, it's going to build on top of the true base enrollment in K through 12, which is in that low 22,000 range. A couple other metrics that we look at it here it's important to our forecasting, looking at the annual birth rate. Now, there are many zip codes that make up the district, or fall within the district boundary. Some extend beyond the boundary, obviously. But what I want you to see here is that the decline in elementary enrollment is not attributed to falling birth rate. Look at all of the different zip codes. Mothers that have had children that live in those zip codes have relatively been flat for the last 10 years plus. I mean, there's a few that you can see in 2018, 2019 that are down a little bit. But the overall trend has been a flat rate. So if you pull all those numbers together, move them 5 years forward, you have the blue line on this chart, and then you can compare that to kindergarten enrollment. So obviously there are more first than students that are enrolled, but you can see that the two trends have really been pretty flat. So the decline at the elementary level has really not been a decline in kindergarten. In fact, the numbers that we have for these last 3 years of data show that kindergarten should continue to be right around 1,700 total students going forward these next 3 years. What has greatly impacted the district, not only Judson, but many school districts here in Greater San Antonio, has been the expansion of charter schools since 2015. So you can see here, this is the Tda Transfer Report. It basically shows students, the orange bars represent students that live within Judson ISD that are transferring out to other public school districts or charter schools. So as the different charter schools have expanded, that number has climbed. This school year, the Tda reported that there were over 5,200 students that live in the district but are not enrolled in Judson. So think about back to that census chart where it showed that growth under 18. You would think that you would see more growth here in the district. Well, the younger people are still growing. It's just they're not all enrolled here in the district. So this chart has been, or this report has been really eye-opening for a lot of districts in different areas across Texas. So this just gives you a comparison. Judson is represented by the gold line there. You can see that even in the north side, students that live in their district or attending elsewhere. Northeast Judson is kind of below those two districts at the top, and then you can see Central, SMC, and Mountain down there. But they're also experiencing losses as well in their member grade. So I guess the main takeaway here is that all of the districts in Greater San Antonio are impacted by the expansion of the charter schools. Now, what you see here is each year we will geocode the student needs data. This I like to show you a visual of all the students that are enrolled, and I overlay that with the district boundary. As we move forward and are able to get more history, we'll be able to produce some more thematic maps for you all. But just so you can see the 2021-22 data, about 25,000 students that we mapped, about 95% fall within or live within the district boundary. All right. So now that we look back, let's look forward. And let's talk about why you're all here, the growth that's coming in the district. Now think back to early 2020 when the COVID pandemic started. How many of you would have guessed that the housing market would go to record all-time highs? So, in fact, many builders were talking about the market falling 20–30% back. Well, that didn't happen. What I'm about to show you is the most construction in Greater San Antonio's history. What has happened over these last 2 years is that these main different variables have all come together to form unprecedented demand for new homes in the region. Number one being that through most of 2020 and 2021, interest rates have been close to 3%. And then that coincided with millennials aging up into their home buying years, where many of those were between the ages of 31 and 41. And so they have started to buy and putting an emphasis on purchasing houses, just like previous generations have done, even though they may have waited longer than previous generations. The existing home market, 31-year low. I'll show you a chart here in a second. Job growth in Texas, here in San Antonio, has been tremendous. And then the reload buyers from out of state, or even other parts of Texas, have just been phenomenal. In fact, the Census Bureau did report that from the middle of 2020 to last summer, Dallas-Fort Worth was the #1 area of people moving from outside the country into Texas, and then Austin and San Antonio were also in the top 10. San Antonio was ranked 7th in the nation of all metro areas where people moving right from out of state. So what I'm about to show you, and you probably know somebody from California on your screen, so not some of you in the room. So what's happened because of that list that I showed you is that the region has grown to the most new home construction ever. This chart here shows the data through the end of 2021, where there were over 22,600 new homes started, and then closings, those are occupied homes. So these come from all of our companies' count of all the individual subdivisions, and we track each individual subdivision from planning and zoning all the way through to occupied homes on the individual lots. So this is the roll-up. You can see the green line of all the lot deliveries. Over 21,000 new lots were delivered in 2021. So the interest rate, huge driver. What's really interesting is that I did this chart back at the end of February. It was 3.89. As of last week, many banks on an average on the 30s it's right at 5. So as I show this to you, and I'm showing you what the projected growth is, at the same time, we're watching what interest rates are doing and how that is impacting the sales out there. What we're hearing so far this spring is that, yes, it's a concern that the buyer lists are still deep. There's still competition. I'm sure you can talk to your neighbors and hear about somebody that's received a cash offer way historical numbers here. This is that existing home chart that shows that Texas A&M Real Estate Center tracks the data, and this is the lowest supply of existing homes out there in 31 years for the region. So again, these things push people to the new home market. So speaking of the new home market, these are the numbers for the district. On a quarterly basis, if you look at the chart on the left, you can see that starting in 2019 and 2020, builders started to start homes at a record pace here in the district. The numbers also coincide or represent a change in strategy as prices have gone up. Builders have started to spec out entire sections of the neighborhood. So you might have seen, if you go into some of these places, you'll just see your working building homes up and down the street, nobody living in them yet. Well, that's part of the way that they're controlling costs, and then they're releasing those houses to whether it's 3 months, 4 months, 6 months down the road. This past fall, we've seen some changes where the builders have gone back to more build-to-suit, but right now, a lot of the more value-driven type builders, which are here present in Judson, they're continuing to build on the spec strategy. So these are the annualized numbers for new construction in the district. So you can see, look up into from 2011 all the way through 2016, just above 500 homes in the district, very consistent. And then it just takes off as developers added new residential lots. And then through the pandemic, that green line represents new lot deliveries. And as those new lots have been added, the builders have started and closed all the new homes. So the number has come down, obviously, 1,015 for 2021, but the number of closings, up there, reached a record high in the third quarter of 2021, and they're still doing over 1,800 starts and 1,700 closings. Now, that makes Judson the third most active new home market in all of Greater San Antonio. So if you take those nearly 23,000 starts in the region and use the school district boundaries, you see Northside at the top, doing about 5,000 homes now, starting over 4,000 and closing about 2,900, and then there's Judson up there in third place. So what I'm about to show you is you will have a very strong housing market right now. And you have some of the fastest growing, or your neighbors are also very strong. So you also have to keep that in mind with open enrollment, all these homes in the I-10 corridor that are in Central, and you also have SUC that are also 15, 18, and I-10, those areas growing as well. So you can see 5th and 6th with East Central and SUC, those are primarily driven by the I-10 corridor as well. So a lot of activity in this area, as you can see. Now, the subdivisions that are producing within the district that are producing the most homes, Horizon Point has been the leader. Also, Deer Orchard and Kendallbrook. You can see Deer Orchard also Lincoln. So different elementary zones these subdivisions feed into. Here's a roll-up of all of the activity by attendance zone. So the Escondido attendance zone has seen the most activity over the last year. But we're in those areas right here with them, and followed by the Masters, attendance zone, Spring Meadows, and then Congress and Harvard. Roll these up into the middle school lines. Most of this in the Metzger middle school attendance zone, followed by Kitty Hawk, and then Judson and Woodland. High school wise, most of them in the Wagner attendance zone, over 800 homes started in 2021, over 7 to 24. The types of homes, if you go out there, there's a majority, if you go out there and drive around, you'll see the majority of these homes are what we call, they're basically entry-level or more value-driven homes. You see a lot of smaller one-stories there in. That's important. It's how the builders are keeping the prices years ago was under 200,000. So about $100,000 increase for relatively the same house, or if not smaller. But that rise in price is something that we're watching as well all across the state. Think about that in conjunction with rising interest rates. That's where, when we do our housing forecast, we have to account for these things. So at some point there will be an affordability ceiling that we'll reach, but right now it seems like everything seems to be moving forward briskly. But a lot of it is in that 250 to 300,000 price point today. You see all this stuff that put on the ground to target a buyer that's looking for a home in that price range. This map has the elementary boundaries. Everything that you can see up there in yellow is an active subdivision. Ones that are purple and orange, those are where lot development's taking place. When you can see anything that's in blue, it's hard to see, but those are preliminary or future tracks. So in addition to the 1,200 homes that are currently under construction and not occupied at the moment, there are just about 1,200 homes that are, 1,200 lots that are fully finished and ready for a house to start at any point. And then coming behind that is another 1,200, 1,195 exact homes that are under development. So we roll all of that together, plus an additional 675 that are still on paper. The district still has over 4,300 lots in the pipeline together. So that's what we're going to talk about next, is what is that going to do? Think back to the enrollment history. You have the true base population or base enrollment that's in the low 22,000 range, plus that huge kindergarten group that you're hoping to keep or to get more of those students that come in when they start kindergarten. You can see a lot of activity still is ahead in the district. I'll quickly go through some pictures so you can see some of the development. This is up in the northern part of Worthamos, just some more phases up in the Citadel Canyons. Don't get a lot of kids out of this area, but from the newer homes, but it's kind of neighborhood by neighborhood. If you're down TPC Parkway and you're around Langdon and Canyon Crest, those subdivisions are getting students. So that's what it's pictured. So another phase of Canyon Crest, and then all this down here at the bottom of the photograph is a future phase of Langdon. Just over by Rotama, there's the little neighborhoods in the Sunrise Village. You can move south and over by Congress Elementary, you have High Top Ridge and Bridgehaven. You can see all the lots that are still left to go in that area. Then out here by Kendallbrook, this is you see off Elementary, Kendallbrook, and Liberté Ventura, where LGI and KB and all the land is still left to go. Horizon Point is just filling in different sections as it begins to wind down. There's a new apartment complex that's planned there just by I-10. We'll bring 300 units there and into that intended zone. And then also in Miller Ranch, KB only has another phase of lots of it. All right, so that 4,300 plus homes should all be built out over the next several years. We actually think that most of it will get built in the next 5 years. Typically what we see is when we get to like the 20, we see in 24 and 25, or really starts to taper off, that's when the developers will really put the pressure on landowners for additional tracts of land. So it's certainly possible that more things get added as we move out. But just looking at what we know today, that those 4,500 homes are coming, and then there's 1,200 apartments that are planned. So what does that mean for in terms of how it compares to capacity or the pressure that it's going to put on capacity. Well, remember the geocoded dots? We use all that geocoding to update our student yield or produce student yield analysis. What you see is that the typical single-family home has been yielding about 0.47. So basically, every 2 houses that are built, we're getting a student yield. If you want to go and look at the elementary, it's 0.19. Every 5 houses that are built, it's getting these numbers, you can see that the newer neighborhoods are yielding even a little bit lower at 0.35. That's not unusual. We see this in this type of home throughout the state. What that reflects is that you have a lot of young families that may not even have children yet. They might have one student that's enrolled, and the others are too young to be enrolled, but they'll be coming. We see a lot of these neighborhoods begin at a yield of 0.3, 0.4, and then in a few years they'll be up to 0.6, 0.7 range. But for forecasting purposes, we see a mix of buyers in these neighborhoods. So you do have some empty nesters that might downsize, that like to be near the grandkids, and so they're just mixed in with the regular home buyers or the traditional home buyers that you see in many of these subdivisions. And when you look at what these apartment developers are yielding, about 0.2. Apartments are, we've kind of seen them separate into high-end luxury type apartments that are 4 and 5 story high and really high rents that have 2 3-bedroom units, and they yield very few students, versus income assisted type apartments, and those yields will typically be 0.3 to 0.6, sometimes higher than that. So let's look at the projected enrollment based on all of that housing activity. We take all of the individual subdivisions, their student yields. We forecast each out for each one of those for 10 years, roll it all together, and that's what you see on the blue line. But before I mention anything further on that, look at the green. That is simply using historical, it's called a historical cohort survival method, where you're just using the long-term rates of growth for each grade level. If you use that method, you see that the district should be growing kind of similar to what we've seen these last 5 years, 0.3. It's continuing on. But what I'm showing you here is that all of these additional homes should lift you up to a faster rate to what the blue line represents. So that is closer to 1%. So the net growth over 5 years adds 1,200 students, and then it slows down over that 5 to 10 years out time frame, but still a net of over 1,700 students. So when you see all this growth, and we look at capacity, and when you roll all the individual campuses together, the picture doesn't look too bad. When you look at, these are all of the capacity for each attendance level. The blue bar represents elementary. The pink is middle school, and the orange there, or the gold, is high school. And you can see that at elementary. Looks like, yeah, it's growing, but it will go right up against functional or practical capacity. And then you can see with some of the smaller classes coming up behind that record wave of high school students, you can see that middle school and high school are projected to be in pretty good shape going forward. But when you look at this more specifically geographically, it tells a different picture. This is a heat map of the projected students from all of that housing. And so you can see that a lot of growth is still projected up in the northernmost area, as well as in the south central area of the district, basically in the Wagner attendance zone. So closer look shows that growth, in attendance zones like Worthmose, Crestview, Masters, they're all, these particular campuses are all above 100% capacity. But these are the roll-up for all of the areas that are at the elementary level that are well over 100% capacity. At the middle school, you can see that Kirby and Blue Lake Hills and Judson are all below 100%, but Metzger and Kitty Hawk are expected to continue to keep getting bigger. And then high school, pretty good for Veterans Memorial. But Wagner and Judson right now are these next 3 or 4 years is going to be pretty tight. There is potential for them to level back out, but they're going to be right at capacity as well. So these do include portables. You all mentioned that last time when you talked about capacity, it didn't have portables. What Helen shared with me is that there are basically 10 portables across the district. It provides 440 extra seats for elementary. The middle schools do not have any portables at the moment. The high school have about a little more than 300, is that correct, for that are utilized for additional space. So those are included in the capacity numbers that you see here for each school. I know that's a lot to take in, but we did it in 30 minutes. I'll answer any questions at this time. Nicole, is that?
Yes, please.
All right. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
How many portables would you say were at the high school?
I believe is it 5 or 6?
So we did have some portables at the high school. So one point of clarity there, we do have portables at the high schools. Currently, they're not all being utilized for additional student capacity, right? So what we're showing here is only if we're currently utilizing them to increase the capacity. There may be portables at a high school that are being used as a storage building right now, right? And so the only thing we counted in this picture right here is where we have a portable and it's being utilized as a classroom. So I think right now it's 300 plus for middle school, high school.
The chart that you had relatively early about the number of children that were going to charter schools by district. The thing that was surprising to me in that chart, most of it was just sort of population growth. But Northeast and Northside started together and really diverged apart. Later on, it looked like there was just more population growth in Northside. But assuming we want to keep the Judson kids in Judson schools and not in the charter schools, how much of the divergence, and you may not be aware, but how much of the divergence between Northside and Northeast is being driven by things outside the system? Or are there strategic decisions that Northeast is making that's keeping their students in Northeast schools and not going to charter schools? Is there any sort of difference in strategy there that we can apply so that our numbers will be closer to Northeast than they are to that?
It's a great question. I can't answer what they're doing. I mean, but a lot of districts that have seen big impact from a competitive situation increase in these last 3 or 4 years. I mean, I've seen school districts have their own marketing departments. They go and reach out to the parents in these particular areas that they believe that the charters are targeting to find out what those parents, what they're seeing in the charter. But I can tell you just generally from what I've seen over the last 5 years is, most of the charters will go after that promise of making that child the first one to graduate and go to college. And a lot of those parents may not feel that that's attainable or achievable in the current situation that they're in. They may achieve a more disciplined environment. They may like big curriculum. It's just all over the place. Now, we see people drive 20, 30 minutes to church. And so, where do you work? And how that relates to that is a part of it as well. So, again, many different reasons for why parents are doing that, but it does have an impact. It would be much larger if there wasn't an IDEA or great hearts on every corner. Yes, ma'am. Well, and that's a great point that Colin's making. The Northeast is landlocked. They pretty much have been through most of their residential development. But the north side continues to expand. I was looking for the heat map. You can see how the 1604, western 1604 area, they just continue to push further and further away. So yes, they keep growing and adding both traditional public schools and public charters as well.
So that makes it sound that the difference between north side and northeast is really more just population.
I think that
Differentiation.
I think we figured it out.
I do think the northeast is the
But I know it's challenging because I work with districts like Southwest, and they sometimes have 3 or 4 different schools right on the border. And it can happen again. Yes, ma'am. We're doing the best we can. Now, if they don't, I can't say for certain where the next one's going to be or how, but I just know that if there's one already open incrementally, it's taking a few, it's 40 or 50 a year in from that particular area. And when you look at that particular attendance zone, you can see the impact that it's had, and we try to continue to see here for the immediate future that it will continue.
So these numbers basically is no charge.
No. All of the numbers that you see, look at the patterns for each of, we look at the historical patterns for each of those individual schools and their enrollment totals, because you'll have campuses that have 130 or so, and part of the reason why you see those middle school and high school numbers fall, well, those are areas where there's like 130, 140 per grade in 5th grade, but behind that, it falls back to like 80. And so we're taking into account for those different patterns. Okay. The question was basically, are we taking into account other factors such as attrition in certain areas, charter school expansion? As much as we can, we're trying to factor in all of those historical and current trends, and then trying to understand those and then add in the growth from the new housing. And that's what you see as a goal. Yes, ma'am.
So I have a question. With going back to the transferring in and transferring out due to charter schools, do you by any chance have a breakdown of how many of those kiddos are elementary, how many are middle, and how many are high schools?
The question is, do we have a breakdown of the charter?
Correct.
The state does not provide that.
Okay.
So the answer is no, unfortunately. We get asked that a lot. All we are provided is where they're going. We don't have grade totals. And if we go and look at what a particular school, that, for example, say the Great Arts School that just opened, we'll just get a total number by grade. But you have to understand that each one of those students can be 30 miles away from that school.
Thank you.
Another question about the charters. Is there a particular formula, restriction, limit on the number? And I'm really directing this at the district board, you may know. number of schools they can have in a particular area or district?
The question is, does the charter school have basically regulations for how much they can build and expand? I believe that's the case, but that's not something that I know the answer to. So that,
They don't have, they could open up as many as they wanted to.
So Dr. Ball, how does it, I would just, because, okay, so my organization, we look at how, like, we had a lot to do, our policy team does a lot of work around fair funding and how those formulas are set by the state. And so I know that a percentage of our funding, there's like this sharing of resources, which is really comes down to money. And I don't think the public really understands that, and that they are literally siphoning money away from the public schools that are in their district. And so I mean, like, so when your friends are talking about charter schools, it's not about, I'm not debating curriculum. I do have issues with teacher quality, but the bigger idea here is that every charter school that opens in a district siphons money away from that district. And it's just unfair that, like, even if the bond had passed, some of our funding has to go to support charter schools who have amazing restrictions on the number of students that or who they enroll. So it just baffles me that there is no
officials in Austin know all of that.
I just
And it's systematically trying to kill.
to undermine public schools.
Right. So
I know.
vote for it or not.
any other questions? How does the military, she asked if, how does the military cycling impact the district? I worked with SUC for a decade, and I've been asked that question every year. It's been very consistent because these last 10 years, so it's very difficult to answer that. It just seems like the turnover has been consistent and it hasn't impacted positively or negatively either way. If we were to see some major closure, obviously that would be something we have to look at. But right now, things have been very stable. All right. Thank you very much for your attention tonight. I will turn it back over to Nicole.
Thank you so much, Mr. Alexander. That was awesome. Every time I hear a demographic presentation, I always learn something new, and I always have like these questions in my head, and then somebody else asks them for me. So thank you, question askers. And thank you so much for your attention with this presentation, which is important and also very interesting, and also gets our minds flowing to what are the strategies we are going to come up with to retain our kids, to attract our kids, looking at all of those dots and areas that are active sites. How can we really strategically look at that and market a little bit better? And so definitely those are some things that we're really going to look at. This information is just the tip of an iceberg. I know some of you are probably wondering, including your binder, where's this presentation? We are going to give you a copy of the presentation. It's still a draft form. Mr. Alexander is going to speak at our board budget workshop this week as well. And so once the presentation is finalized, we will make sure that this committee gets a copy of it and it will be posted as well on our website. So we just have one final thing before you get to enjoy the rest of your night. We're going to go on our virtual tour of Wagner High School. What we really wanted to show you were some of the needs of our track. That was one of the big things that we wanted to show you. And so we do have a little virtual tour to show you that you were gonna go on, just to say. We tested this out. Just pretend there's background music.
I can hear it. Let me narrate it.
Okay. Do you want me to pause? Here she comes.
I was the one that was really adamant that wanted to host the meeting outside. I wanted to host this meeting outside because I know that a lot of times people don't go on the tour. And if you don't see this truly, or with your own two eyes, you will not believe me that there are many, many spots where I can put my entire foot up to my ankle in this hole. And it's not just one. And I've gotten really close to our track girls here at Wagner. And when the bond didn't pass, it was devastating. And look at that. That's their phone. That's a person's phone actually fits in here. So they are down now. Play it one more time. So they are down to one lane. One lane that does not have it. So I'm really passionate about this, and people get upset at me and they say, well, you're just all about athletics. No, I am all about what keeps our kids engaged. And this keeps our kids engaged. Our teams deserve to have a better track. Look at this. I mean, this is somebody's foot, somebody's phone is really fitting through those cracks. So when you hear these comments, oh, Dr. Ball is all about athletics, it's not that I'm all about athletics. It's about, I can tell you, no school district and no campus in Northside or Northeast has a track that looks like this. So our kids should be running on a track like this. So I am very passionate. And I'm going to be even more honest. Why is it okay? Because the majority of the students that come to this school are black. So it's okay for them to have a track like this? I'm just putting it out there. I'm just putting it out there and being real. It is not okay. It is not okay. Our kids deserve the very best. Just like if they go to Northside, Northeast, Cornell, Schertz, Cibolo, wherever they want to go. So I really wanted you to see this because I was infuriated when people said, you only care about athletics. You bet I care about athletics, but I care about CTE, I care about our ag program, our cheer, our dance, anything that keeps our kids in school, I care about it. So I will get off my soapbox. Anybody have questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
And I appreciate your passion for this. There's no money in the budget to fix out that you have to wait for a loan. Like, why can't that be fixed now?
So a very, very rough estimate. And I want to also tell you why this would cost a lot more to fix here than if we had it at Veterans or at Rutledge Stadium. The soil here, it's been fixed once. It's been fixed once, and Helen can say it fancier than me. But if you don't go deep enough and really fix the problems that we have with the soil, we'll be standing up here again in 2 years and saying, oh, Look at the mess. And I don't want that on my watch. So it costs about $8 million. 12 million. And give me 1 second, because I'm gonna get on my other soapbox now too. Everybody thinks, well, Dr. Ball, you have this great fund balance. But if you were to dip into it, $10 million every year, we will have no fund balance. The year I started at Judson, we were in a deficit of $18 million. So we can quickly go into a deficit, and we can't believe that's right. So the answer realistically is no.
But the problem then is not really the demographics, it's who built it the first time, who fixed it the first time.
But all of that part, there's no warranty on it anymore. There's, any of that part can't help us. So I'm not going to cry over spilled milk. Now I have to work on getting it fixed.
I understand that, but the people who are voting for the bond are the same people who attend the district, right?
Right.
So,
We have way too many parents. As the presentation just said, I'm so sorry to interrupt.
No, please do that.
This was part of the conversation last time, and we were there. The problem, looking at
The transfers, or people who do not have children in Judson schools but live in Judson ISD and vote no. There are too many of them that do not vote yes for the bond.
but the parents who send the kids to this district are not voting. So why are they not voting? That's what the statistics show. Yes, the older people came out, but the parents did not come out. So why? Why did the parents not come out?
So let me share that with you, okay? I have asked the board to help me engage with a company that does just that for me. But these are probably the people that voted yes. If you take the time to come to a meeting, you probably voted yes. We don't get to hear from those that voted no because they're not here.
There are different ways to reach out. I can tell you, I don't answer surveys, whether it's phone, email, I don't do it.
Okay.
Because I don't trust them. I
Okay.
really don't trust them. So I would rather you come to me and say, what's up? Let's talk, let's figure this out.
And that's what we've been doing.
Right, exactly, and that's why these meetings are so awesome.
Right. And I don't mean to put anybody on the spot, but if somebody here did happen to vote no and wants to share why they voted no, I'll gladly listen.
I voted yes, but
Right.
you have to engage us like this. I'll be perfectly honest with you. Send me a survey, it's not gonna happen.
And everybody's different, and that's why we have to do it's like a buffet of services that we have to provide, because what works for you might not work for her, for them, and we have to try every avenue.
You have to reach the parents of the ones who are
Not just the parents. Not just the parents.
not
Because,
us, but the numbers, I remember the numbers of the people who voted when they went by age, they went by zip code, and the age group of the folks who would have children in schools did not come out. Those numbers were really low.
I know that there was another question, so,
She said what I was gonna say. I was like, we all know the soil here is sandy. We know that things settle. So why wasn't that addressed with the contractor that initially built it?
and those are great questions, and y'all know I wasn't here. So I wasn't here at that time, and I am not gonna point any fingers at my predecessors. So if it would have been me that was here, I would answer your question, but I'm just not that type of person. I'm not gonna point fingers at my predecessors. But Mr. Harrison wants to say something.
I was here. I can tell you, as board members, we don't have that kind of expertise. In fact, our architects, our builders, and most importantly, our staff to deal with that and make sure that's taken care of. Most of those people are no longer
Right, you bet. The best place is for you to email me. Send it to me. I promise you I read and open all my emails. So send it to me. You can send it to Helen Heath. It's H Heath at Judson ISD. You can send it to her. CC your principal me. Yeah, we work for you. So keep shouting it until we fix it. No. Teachers. No, there's several teachers in here. Oh yeah, no, there's several teachers in this group. I know there's some there. I know there's one right there. You know, teacher. Yeah, so there's, and this is a very small group compared to what we had. So you keep coming though. Keep coming. And bring more. Bring more. Yes, ma'am. Any questions, ma'am?
So as far as the growth for elementary schools, clearly a lot of schools are going to start paying capacity. As far as planning for new facilities or adding facilities, I'm a representative from the largest growing group, pre-K. Is there a plan to make facilities that are specifically designed for those students?
We have talked about that. So we have talked about having a campus that just houses their unique needs. So we are currently looking at that. Ceci Davis is our Chief Innovation Officer, and I know she's been having some conversations with individuals. So we have talked about that. One of the biggest challenges about that is that our district, when y'all saw the map, our district is so spread out. And when you're talking about 3- and 4-year-olds, parents do not want to put them on the bus for a long time. So that's one of the challenges. But we are, I'm not saying no, I'm not saying yes, but letting you know that we are looking into it. Yes, ma'am.
What actually are you looking at? You said you approached the board to be able to, yeah, because I want to know, what are you looking for to be able, because I know these parents are not as active in the school district. I don't know why.
So my thing is, I don't want it to be just for the parents. So the real question was, what am I looking at in regards to what I approached the board about? I'm looking at the entire voting population of Judson ISD. I'm looking at the entire voting population of Judson ISD to find out what are their needs, what do they want from us, what could we do to get them to go out and vote, what will make them vote, what they will not vote for. All those very specific and particular things, we want that knowledge and we want to know that, so we're very prepared once the board gives us the green light to go forward with this.
So do you have bids out right now?
Yes, we did an RFP.
Okay, so,
I think it was an RFQ actually. RFP, oh, thank you.
so when will we see, okay, this has been submitted, this is what the board said?
So in May, we'll take it back to the board and then see what the board says. Great question. Yes, ma'am. All the broken stuff? Yeah. It's one of these, and I'll be very honest, what's the same as like a catch-22, right? Because if I do that too much, then people won't want to come to a broken, district. So we're trying to find the best ways to share that information so it doesn't sound so bleak and people say, well, why would I want to bring my kid there? But at the same time, share with parents, look, this is a reality. We want to fix this for our children. So we're trying to find a happy medium on how to best do that. Exactly. There's the size of Judson ISD. There are so many things, so many needs that we have, not just in athletics, in CTE, in ag, and in all. We have a lot of need. We really do. Yes, ma'am.
Is it possible, instead of adding like affordable buildings, is it possible that some of the schools can
So if you saw the design, that slide where he was talking about Judson High School and Wagner, so those two campuses are getting quite large. The one that we have, though, if you think about it, it's at Veterans, so it's a little bit tricky to redo the boundary lines, but not something that we haven't thought about.
What about like elementary schools too? We're all mostly one story except for 3 new ones.
Yes, we have. Yep, we are looking at that. Yes. This feels so awkward having the camera right here. So, any other questions or thoughts? I'm open to all suggestions. I want to thank our board president, Ms. Renee Pichelle. She always comes to our meetings, so I'd like to thank her for being here. Absolutely. Our former board member, Mr. Johnny Harris, is also always here. True advocates and supporters of our district. So thank you. Oh, and Mr. Salinas was here, but he left. He left because the weather's supposed to get bad and no one wants to drive in the bad weather. Anybody? Questions or comments? Yes, ma'am, please.
No, about the Wagner, my son graduated from here too. I know it was already a problem and I didn't know that it was temporarily fixed. And now I guess it's really worse than before. So now that my middle schooler is coming here, so hopefully, I did vote yes. But the problem is that I'm seeing right now, because I engaged through email also, when we had about the TDA, one representative parent, and we're on like a virtual meeting, and they voiced out a lot of things about, schools, like problems. And one comment is about parents engaged, me, I try to be here every meeting as much as I can, because I have kids that come here, and I love the schools. I never had a bad experience yet, but the thing that I'm hearing when that virtual meeting is about engaging, parents to engage. So what I don't know, it's been a question in my mind too, like what do we need to do so that parents would, like, we have more like filling out this auditorium and voicing out everything. Because I know you guys are good on communications like the website, the
Social media. So this is my Jeanette Ball's thought, okay? Jeanette's Ball thought is that honestly, a lot of people still feel intimidated about coming. They feel, I don't belong, I don't know anything about it, I don't have time. So for our next one, I'm gonna personally challenge all of y'all to invite 3 people. Invite 3 people to come with you. It's like Ms. Carmino said, sometimes some people want it through email, sometimes it's a personal. So whatever works, you go either knock on their door and say, please come with me to this meeting. And the next one is at Coronado Village. Coronado Village, either email them, Facebook them, Twitter them, TikTok them, knock on their door, whatever, we do that. Do we not TikTok them or? Okay. Yeah. Instagram them, and you go get me some more this morning.
They attend the board meetings. They're a great place to get your feelings known, to get your thoughts out there, to get feedback from board members. You can watch them on TV too, but there's nothing like going in person. But I think that's how you get your parents involved. Get your parents, get your teachers, and bring them to the board meetings.
Here we go. There you go. Okay. Anybody have anything else? Did you? Oh, we have a giveaway meeting. Oh, no. Just before everybody left, I wanted to remind you, if you didn't already know, that we are having a
blood drive tomorrow. The second annual blood drive for Bryce Wisdom, who was a student at Judson High School. Amazing young man who lost his battle with cancer. And so tomorrow we are having a blood drive at Judson High School in the auxiliary gym from 12 to 7. I'll be wearing my Bryce Strong shirt. So it's there, you've got to register to participate, but just wanted to share that before you all left. And the link is on the website. Okay. Please get home safely. I will send you an email to remind you of our next meeting, and we very much appreciate you being here. Thank you.